All right, so what I'm gonna be doing is cutting out the lining. This is what's called pile lining, which is a man-made version of sheepskin. So you can see that it is not actually sheepskin by the back on here, but it is extremely warm and fluffy. So this is a awesome alternative if you don't want to spend the money on actual sheepskin. And then the other thing I did here is these are for someone. So this is just their initials on the moccasin sole. At this point, you would likely already have the beading done on your vamps, but for this particular pair, they are going to be completely plain, so there won't be any beading or anything on the vamp. So you're just gonna cut out the lining the same way that you did the leather moccasin pieces. So 2 of the foot pieces, 2 of the vamp. And then obviously you don't need the sole for the lining. So you'll have 4 pieces in total. So I just do the same thing. I use the pen to go around the pattern and then I cut it out. All right, so I've got all of that traced out and now I'm just going to, bless you. Now I'm just going to cut my pieces out. All right, so I'm at the point where I'm going to be sewing my lining together. So I'll be sewing the top part and the bottom part together. The one thing that you may want to do is put a little mark on the middle of your vamp piece and the middle of, here I just eyeball it now, but you can fold it over, make sure that's in the right spot. That looks good to me. Just like that. That one was slightly off, but there's your middle. And then you can do the same thing with these as well. And then the other thing you may want to do, if you've purchased a pattern, it probably has marks on it. So this is where you're going to start doing your tucks. So you can mark that on there as well. And then you might want to mark where you're doing your tucks on here as well. But the biggest thing is you're going to be sewing from here to here. So this is where you're going to start doing your tucks all the way around. So you can mark that spot on here as well if you'd like, just to kind of have an idea. And then what I'm going to be doing is using my upholstery thread, which is super thick so that we can see it on the video. This is what I use for actually sewing the leather. And the kids are having a Nerf gun war downstairs, which is what you're hearing in the background. And then this is a leather glover needle. So it's super sharp and I'm still going to use it for the lining just because of how thick the lining is. So I've just got a nice long piece of the thread. Just bring it through. And then for the knot, here's my needle. I've got my thread here. I just hold it and then I wrap it around the needle 6 or 7 times, grab onto all of those loops and then pull it down to the end. And that's how I've got my knot there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start whip stitching. All right, so now what we're going to be doing is sewing the lining together. So you're going to take the bottom part of your vamp, line it up with this corner part of the foot piece for your lining, and you're going to whip stitch it all the way up to this point here. And if you don't know what I mean by whip stitch, so we're going to go about 1/4 of an inch in. Like I said, I'm going to use this thread. This is actually upholstery thread, but I'm going to use it for this because you can see it clear on the video. And I'm also using my leather needle because the lining is so thick, and you can see the sharp points on this needle. And then you're going to whip stitch all the way up to that point. So round and round and round. All right, so I've sewn up to the point where I need to start my pleats. So you're going to take the foot part and you're going to create a pleat by kind of pushing the material together like this. Now, let me tell you, this is much easier on the lining than it is the leather. So just push your material together. And I like to go back up in a similar area with my thread to make sure that it is held super secure. So just kind of push that together, hold it. This is so fluffy, but I can see that I'm right about there. And then this also just kind of holds it in place for while you do the next pleat. So you're going to be doing that all the way around until you hit this mark here and this little mark here. So that's all your pleating material. So we've got lots to go. Just be careful you don't stab yourself right up under the fingernail. I'm speaking from experience. And then an extra reinforcement. So you can see these little pleats forming, and then when you open it up, you don't even see the thread. Okay, so I've got that toe part done. You can see it's starting to look like a little slipper, and you can see all those little pleats. Now what we have to do is sew up the back. So you're going to line up these back pieces from the top. And if you want, you can pin this to hold it in place. And you're going to whip stitch from the top to the bottom. So I like to do a double loop here, or even a knot if you want, just to hold it. And then whip stitch to the bottom. Okay, now that that part is done, it's just this little heel part that we need to sew up. So I'm just going to cut some of these fluffs off. So you're just going to sew right across here. Okay, so now that both linings are done, I'm going to be sewing the sole onto the foot part of the moccasin. So you're going to start on the inside, so the knot is on the inside, and put the knot at the heel. And then you're just going to be stitching all along the edge. Okay, so I went ahead and I made one of the moccasins so that you can see what the final outcome looks like. Like I said, the person who ordered these did not want any beading or any fur, so the beading would have gone here, and typically I'd put fur around here. She wanted just the tan leather, no fur, so I just put a piece of leather up here. And the reason you do that is to cover all of the stitching underneath. And that is what the finished moccasin will look like. So, moving on to what we're going to be doing for the second one, we need to start sewing the pieces together.